So here we have a client that has a 15K race coming up in 4 weeks, and I've just gone ahead and restructured some of his programming. So it's his last week of doing lower body hypertrophy and isometric exercises with specific warm-ups to his weaknesses. So for example, we'll gather a split lunge test, or we'll gather a standing reach test with hamstrings to better understand where somebody is in terms of their mobility. And then we'll put exercises that specifically address their weaknesses. So abductor rock backs for hips, low split lunges for hips. This client had some hip mobility issues, which is really common with entrepreneurs. I'd say it's 80 to 90% have the hips really tight just from prolonged sitting and not sitting in the right chair. And one thing we recommend right away is getting a Herman Miller or an Anthros chairs that are somewhat dynamic and kind of meet your body where it's at in terms of the key adjustment points, and the way your weight sits is a game changer. I got an Anthros chair, and before that point I'd always have problems in my old chair. It was just like a regular kitchen chair that you raise up in terms of height, but it had like kind of a office chair build, but it was still really low and it wasn't fitted to me. And being on the larger end of things, not fitting and sitting for a long time is a recipe for disaster. I had a lot of knee problems, back problems, especially after I got hit on my bike, because I got in a bike incident in October. I've been doing a lot of physio that just finished now, luckily, and things are healed. But anyways, I got hit on my bike, and then after that point, I realized how many problems I had with my mobility. And same thing with our client, that mobility, those problems pertain to the hips. And then once you target them, you quickly notice how much better they get and how your body reformulates and restructures. And the reason why mobility assessment is so important is because if you don't do that, you won't know which dynamics and which muscle contortions and which aspects of you are overdeveloped and which ones are underdeveloped, and how that's currently affecting your current posture, from your walking to your running to your sprinting to your day-to-day posture to the ability for you to be mobile and limber, which immediately translates into, injury prevention, extra strength, better kinetics, you feel better, better blood flow, etc. The benefits go on and on. And this is just one aspect of that warm-up cycle. And on top of that, our clients do a mobility day, which is taken from that assessment as well. So this client had some troubles with his wrists, as well as with his shoulders. And then we see the hips again in some simple yoga stretches. So they do this every single week, the mobility routine, as well as that specific warm-up. And then he has some push and abs as well. So just some basic push and abs hypertrophy, again, emphasizing and not just doing one type of exercise, not just doing machines or not just doing calisthenics, trying to really hit the muscle from all aspects of free weight motion, compound motion, even if it's Pilates motion, for example, flexibility, rotation, kind of hitting all aspects of the way the muscle moves and how it grows effectively without any repercussions. Because usually what we see normal lifters get into is they'll do the same thing over and over again, and that repetitive motion and exercise and prolonged sitting, just those two things coupled together do not result in a lot of benefits. So eliminating and understanding how to target something from a whole is the right approach with specific and basic weight training, which is what this client was on as he's ramping up his runs. Today he has an arms and pull hypertrophy. Same thing, we see barbell bicep curl, pull-ups, so calisthenic, dead hang again calisthenic, and then cable machines, and then plyometric abs at the end. Just having a really good strength training workout to complement Jamison's programming of zone 2 cardio, leg speed, all RPE based. Here's a spin set exercise with some ranges, hard for 5 minutes, between 6 to 8 RPE for the bike as well. So kind of complement, build on each other in that regard. And now I've just started programming his taper up to the June 7th, where he has a 15K race. And next week he's starting off with shoulders and abs hypertrophy, back, abs, and arms hypertrophy. And then he also has a bike warm-up as well as a bike. Next week, we're going to retest his mobility. Funny enough, he's only been tested twice, so this is his third cycle of testing where his flexibility is at to better program a more accurate mobility day. And then we also do that whenever we get RMT notes. So if we send somebody to somebody's house, for example, and they give us the notes, We take these notes and we align them through a trained chatbot, an Optimal Mobility chatbot that gives us the highest leverage activities for them to do in terms of a mobility assessment, warm up, etc. And we just plug that into Training Peaks the next week. And the reason why we're using Training Peaks as a consolidated app platform is because this app does one thing that's really good, and that's making it easier to use and be healthy. All you have to do to sync up Training Peaks with and actually doing the plan is you don't have to open up your phone. You don't have to read a Jan document. You literally click start, and then the Garmin actually guides you through the workout. So if I programmed a bike ride for myself and it was an RPE, and whenever I tapered and trained up to the marathon, I got programming on here, which I immediately put onto the watch. And then the watch yelled at me, hey, speed up, do this RPE, do this heart rate, do this zone, based on the specifics of training that the coach is immediately live programming. I did a taper up to the marathon, as you can see, and then boom, here's Jameson's programming for me. Obviously, we use our own coaches. He's he's one of the best Ironmen to come out of Canada, so of course I'm going to use him to program my training. Simple RPE-based stuff, and then it also integrates and it syncs up to give me fitness scores. And yeah, just really easy to plug and play and orchestrate and better layer training programs and cycles. So that's why we use it. But the biggest piece, like I said, was the ability to make health easier in your life. If you can do that in 1 or 10 ways, you'll feel the impact immediately, because once you make health easier to apply, you stop thinking about it. And the wins that compound the most are the wins that you don't have to think about, that just kind of stack up passively for you. And that could be laying down a yoga mat so every morning you wake up and stretch, or just having whole foods in the fridge, or associating yourself with the gym, or having a gym goal. You now become those aspects of yourself. You feel wrong and you feel out of flow and you feel not like yourself if you don't do them. And that's the exact same thing with health. If you can place an Instacart order, train somebody to come in your home, orchestrate that for you, organize everything, fold your laundry, save you 60 hours a week. I mean, it's ridiculous how many people don't realize, and it's not their fault, but they can save easily 20 to 60 hours a month just by orchestrating and having somebody come in and do a lot of those things for you for less than $5,000. And if you're at that level, you need that time back. The biggest needle mover to your business's growth is you. And every hour is extremely, extremely significant, and it's exponentially expensive, right? As there's different layers of business, as you climb up, your time becomes exponentially more expensive to match the business, to match the value and the decisions that you're making. And if you can free up your time, that is by far the most valuable value. That is by far the biggest needle mover for your business, undoubtedly. And just aligning yourself and being more in flow is where you want to be to create the coolest stuff and help the most people. So yeah, quick spiel about Training Peaks. Here's a training program I just plugged in for a client that has come back from vacation. We have an upper body test, lower body test, and on here we're just tracking all of the rep ranges, the maxes, the exertions, what do we got? Hanging L sits, hamstring curls, back squats. We're just testing and seeing where they're at and how they continue to progress. And then we have 2 sauna days a week on top of a bike. That gets harder in terms of zone 2 duration. So zone 2 duration increases, and the spin set bikes, so the aerobic bikes, get harder as well. And that's ramped up on top of the push and abs, lower body hypertrophy, and implementing a plyometric day. I did a P90X plyometric program with my friend and his dad, and it completely changed my life in terms of the way the muscles contort and sit and twist and push and pull, and how not moving in lateral ways or in springy ways or jumping or unsteady, unbalanced leg holds and all these little things, the more I neglected doing that, the less stable, more injury prone, higher likelihood to fail a lift, higher likelihood to fail an exercise. That's when I made it a non-negotiable to complement that within my training. If that's staggered squats, depth jumps, lateral skater hops, diametric leg bounding, wall sits. All of these are amazing to incorporate once every 2 weeks in a typical strength training program. And just coming from hypertrophy, or if you're just coming from compounds or just from machines and you want to get into Ironman and you want to get into all these high competitive events, I've done a 70.3, I've raced 1 full marathon. I just got a sub 4, unofficial sub 4 in the BMO Vancouver Marathon. Official was like 4:01:24, but the course was long. Strava said 3:58. I was aiming for sub 4, so I try and tell both stories. I don't really know what answer to go with in terms of official time for a first marathon, but I mean, I just say around 4:01. Anyways, as I've leveled up the ability to run faster and faster, and as I'm still very, very, very far away from my potential and from the best people in the world, undoubtedly, I have some friends that ran sub threes at that, which is unbelievable, even close to threes and 3:30s, which unfathomable to do in a marathon, just period. And there's levels to it. And in order for the body to compete at that highest level, or the highest level of accolade where you're having the most amount of fun with what you're doing, think about it. When you're older, you want to be having the most amount of fun. Golf, tennis, maybe basketball, maybe cycling, maybe running, maybe staying active. Because staying active, if you're here and you're part of this channel and you probably find all this stuff interesting, as you noticed, is very fun. And it's about playing that game in a smart way. How are you supporting the only system of mechanics for moving you on a day-to-day basis, running you and running your brain and running your heart? How are you supporting that structure? And that structure is very intricate, and it can't just be supported by what we see and hear by most people. You need to layer on these things on top of one another. A great example is hypertrophy training, and then plyometric training, and then zone 2 running, and then stretching, and then yoga, and then Pilates, and identifying what those weaknesses are, identifying the exact name of the muscle that's tight, where it's located, what are some specific targeted exercises that we can do to make it looser. What happens when we do these things on a week-to-week basis? What happens if we elongate our hamstring on a week-to-week basis with proper training, with proper food, with all of it being done for you, and the likelihood of success just being that much higher when it is done for you? Imagine the consequences of doing it right. Doing it from a full picture perspective, like we are here with our training program, let alone what goes on the back end with meals and the culinary aspect and recovery and sleep tracking, everything. It needs to be taken a look at from this holistic big lens.